New ultra-luxury super yachts from Ritz-Carlton and Four Seasons, comments from the Seabourn president, and our commentary on growing competition within the ultra-luxury cruise market, the proliferation of live-at-sea global cruise brands like Villa Vie Residences, weather-induced itinerary changes and the impacts of climate change on cruise travel, a Legionnaires disease scare on an American cruise line ship, the sentencing of a Viking River Cruises captain for a horrific 2019 Danube River collision, plus our deals desk with details about new 2025 and 2026 itineraries from Oceania, Crystal, and Azamara. That is what you can expect from Calling All Ports Weekly for this, the week of October 9th, 2023. So stay tuned. Calling All Ports Weekly is a digest of premium luxury and ultra luxury cruise news. I'm your host, Andrew. Diana's got the week off. That's what they always say on the morning and evening newscast when the lead anchor is MIA for a broadcast. So I thought it'd be fun to say that as if this is some slick professional TV production, which it is not. But Diana is no doubt the star of this show. So I apologize that you're stuck with me for this one. Anyhow, let's kick this week's video off with some new news. So new ships and new cruise brands, that is. Ritz-Carlton Yacht Collection floats out second super yacht, the Ilma. Last week, Ritz-Carlton celebrated the float out of their second super yacht, Ilma, at the Chantier de l'Antique shipyard in Saint-Nazaire, France. The ship was moved from its dry dock to an outfitting dock for the build-out of its interiors and public spaces, and it'll remain at the outfitting dock for the rest of its build, with the sea trials anticipated in April of 2024. Ilma's inaugural voyage is scheduled for September of 2024 in the Mediterranean. Ilma is 790 feet long. It features 224 suites, so that gives it a double occupancy capacity of 448 passengers. And Ritz-Carlton is claiming that it'll have the highest passenger space ratio at sea. Of course, Ritz-Carlton's first super yacht, Azamara, debuted in October of 2022 after a series of delays. We haven't been on the Azamara ourselves, and despite looking like an absolutely gorgeous, elegant ship, reviews so far have been fairly mixed, with criticisms both of the pricing, or among other things, the pricing. It has quite high fares, but yet it's not all-inclusive. And also the shipboard operations, which is somewhat ironic for a hospitality company. And the cruise line has already undergone a number of management changes and what they've called strategic organizational shifts, presumably to address these faults. Ritz-Carlton Yacht Collection is no doubt a really exciting new player in the ultra-luxury cruise market, and will certainly be following the launch of the Ilma closely. The new Four Seasons Yachts ultra-luxury cruise brand is setting sail in late 2025. Ritz-Carlton is not the only land-based luxury hospitality group getting in on the ultra-luxury super yacht cruising concept. So Four Seasons Hotels is advancing toward a late 2025 launch for Four Seasons Yachts. They've released more design details along with renderings of their still unnamed first yacht, which is being built by Italian shipyard Fincantieri. And they've also announced that a contract's been signed for a second ship in the fleet, which is to be delivered in November of 2026. The first Four Seasons yacht, I'm just going to call it the yacht. They haven't named it yet. It's an all-suite ship that promises what they call a residential private yacht experience, along with what they're calling a sea-to-sky design. Among other things, that seems to mean highlighting outdoor spaces. So, for instance, every suite has a 1,000 square foot plus terrace deck. There will be multiple tiered lounging decks spread around the ship. There will be an extensive water sports marina, and there'll be a saltwater pool that can be converted into a deck space for like outdoor events and performances. Four Seasons is also using exclusivity as a marketing tool. So bookings for the yacht's inaugural voyages are invitation only. So you'll need to be a loyal Four Seasons guest or working with one of their travel partners to gain early access. There's also a wait list that you can sign up for over at fourseasonsyachts.com. The inaugural season will take place in the Caribbean. Again, that's in late 2025, with exact dates and itineraries still TBA. So, is the ultra luxury cruise market getting overcrowded? Building on these first two stories, we turn to an interesting conversation that recently happened over on the Travel Weekly UK webcast. So the Seabourn president, Natalia Leahy, was asked for her thoughts on the growing competition in the ultra-luxury cruise market, both in the areas of expedition cruising and ocean cruising. Obviously, Ritz-Carlton and Four Seasons are new players in the small ship ultra-luxury market. Plus, there's MSC's Explorer Journeys, there's the relaunched Crystal Cruises. Scenic and Viking are still relatively new entrants to ocean cruising. Leahy's response was really positive. She's of the opinion that the untapped market for luxury hospitality experiences is vast, suggesting that lines like Seabourn are focusing mainly on bringing in new to cruisers. So this is one of the motives for like luxury and ultra luxury lines like Seabourn to expand their expedition cruise offerings, which Seabourn has done recently with their newly added expedition ships. So they had the Venture last year in 2022 and the Pursuit just this past summer. As Leahy explained it, expedition cruises attract adventure travelers who normally wouldn't be in the market for a cruise. Yet a cruise ship is the sort of the primary or even sometimes the only way to reach destinations like, say, Antarctica. And the idea is that expedition cruises are kind of a gateway, right? Once these adventure travelers have been on an expedition cruise, they'll catch the bug, they'll return to cruising, including even more traditional ocean cruising, especially with small ship lines like Seabourn, since they're able to visit small ports and kind of off the beaten track destinations. But also with the case of Ritz-Carlton and Four Seasons, these are companies that are well known for land-based ultra-luxury vacations, and the hope seems to be that they'll use their marketing power and they'll use their connections to bring people from the much broader, the much wider luxury market into cruising for the first time. These new-to-cruisers will grow the market in general, Leahy believes, that's to quote her. So she's basically making a rising tide floats all boats argument, essentially. So what do you think? Is the ultra-luxury cruising market getting overcrowded? Are lines like Ritz-Carlton bringing in first-time cruisers, and are those first-time cruisers becoming return cruisers? Do you think all of these new entrants can succeed in the long term? We'd love to hear your comments. So next we have another new entrant into the luxury cruising market. So Live at Sea luxury cruise brand Villa Vie Residences debuts its 3.5-year-long world cruise concept. In the past year or so, there have been a number of these residential cruise lines that have grabbed headlines, including Ocean Residences, Njord, Storylines, MV Narrative, and Life at Sea Cruises, which actually has its inaugural sailing coming up on November 1st. So these are either multi-year cruises. So for instance, Life at Sea Cruises offers a 3-year-long cruise, or they operate a kind of private residences model where you lease or purchase a cabin. So for example, the Njord is expected to have 117 private residences on board when it's completed in 2026. And these can be purchased for a 50-year term for anywhere between $8.5 million and $70 million per unit. So essentially, it's like a luxury condominium complex at sea. And in fact, the world has been operating this private residential cruise ship model since 2002 with 165 cabins, or again, they call them residences, on board. Nevertheless, Villa Vie Residences is one of the new world cruise brands that's coming online, and it's set to launch in May of 2024, and it'll circumnavigate the globe every 3.5 years. One thing that's somewhat unique about Villa Vie is that they're offering the option to either purchase a cabin, which you can do starting at $100,000, or to rent a cabin for segments that range for anywhere between 35 and 120 days at prices that start as low as $89 a day per person. So unlike some of the other world cruise brands, Villa Vie's ship, which appears to be named Sail La Vie, is not a new ship. It's, in their words, an updated and redesigned cruising vessel, or rather that's according to an article on the Cruise Hive website. Some commenters on Cruise Critic noticed that Villa Vie is using a photoshopped image of Holland America's, it's either the Zaandam or the Volendam. Few details have been provided actually about the ship's origin or the size of the ship and its amenities. They've just released some sort of rather generic kind of renderings and photographs. So there are some serious questions about the ship itself, and the company has only just emerged in September, and it plans to set sail in May of next year, which is maybe a suspiciously quick turnaround. But we'd certainly be curious to hear if any viewers out there have plans to sail with Villa Vie. And more generally, these residential cruise lines take the kind of cruising lifestyle to a whole other level. So, could you live on a cruise ship for 3 years or even longer? In Alaska, Princess Cruises' Majestic Princess was forced to skip its Hubbard Glacier visit due to rough seas. This was a little more than a week ago now. The Majestic Princess was on its last full inside passage sailing of the Alaskan cruising season, when it was forced to miss its scenic cruising day of the Hubbard Glacier. Passengers received a letter in their cabins on the day before explaining that due to high winds and heavy seas on their planned route back to Vancouver, that they had to divert to a more sheltered return route, which the letter claimed was the necessary decision or resulted in the necessary decision to cancel their scenic cruising of Hubbard Glacier. There were also Royal Caribbean and Carnival ships that canceled ports due to this same weather pattern. So while missed ports and vessel path changes are, of course, not an uncommon part of cruising, scenic cruising of advancing glaciers like the Hubbard are really, of course, a core part of any Alaskan cruise. And so Majestic Princess passengers were no doubt frustrated to have missed the sight. And it also certainly highlights the risks of cruising Alaska during the shoulder seasons, which are in April, May, and September, October. You get better deals and there are fewer crowds, yet the weather is more unpredictable during those shoulder seasons. But the risk can also pay off. I mean, we did Holland America cruise of the Inside Passage in mid-May of this year with Holland America, and the weather was absolutely gorgeous. I mean, skies were clear, seas were calm, temps were actually in the 60s and 70s. So our question for you is, what would you do in this situation? Would you write it off as part of the journey and just take the missed glacier day in stride? Or would you blame Princess? Might you even seek out compensation from the cruise line? Or would you try filing a claim with your travel insurance over the trip interruption and the loss of fun? That's my favorite travel insurance term, loss of fun. Related to this topic, there was an interesting article in the New York Times a few days ago about the unpredictability of travel in the age of climate change. It highlights ways in which extreme weather impacted tourism, particularly this past summer season, from the wildfires in Greece to heat waves across the northern hemisphere to floods and droughts and other climate calamities. The article's main thesis is that unpredictability is the new normal. I'm straight quoting that from the article. So for travel, unpredictability is the new normal. So the idea is that travelers should expect trip disruptions and should be building flexibility into their plans moving forward. And the author's one direct mention of cruise travel involves a a quote from the chief executive of the expedition cruise company Lindblad Expeditions, who says that climate shifts have made storms harder to predict, and that, to quote them, the possibility of disruption to a cruise is higher now than it's ever been in the last 50 years. So we wonder, have you had to deal with a weather-related travel disruption in the past year? Are you accepting of these potential risks, and how is it affecting your trip planning and preparation moving forward in the years ahead? So, is there a potential Legionnaires outbreak on board American Cruise Line ship the American Splendor? USA Today is reporting that American Cruise Lines found Legionella bacteria on board the American Splendor back in mid-September during a lower Mississippi River sailing that was during the week of September 11th. In a letter sent to guests on board, they announced that a water sampling had revealed Legionella to be present in limited locations on board, to quote the letter, but added that no confirmed cases of Legionnaire's disease had been reported at that time. Legionnaire's is a serious type of pneumonia. It can be deadly, according to the CDC. About 1 in 10 people who get sick from Legionnaire's will die. The Legionella bacteria occurs naturally in freshwater environments like lakes and streams, though it becomes a real health concern when it grows and spreads in human-made water systems, of course, like a cruise ship's water supply. American Cruise Lines took immediate steps to remediate the problem. The FDA was notified and has launched an investigation. However, USA Today reported on passengers who claimed illness during and after the cruise, although a Legionnaire's diagnosis was unconfirmed at the time of that report. And this is not the first time that American Cruise Line has had these problems. So they were reprimanded by the FDA earlier just this year after Legionella was found on board a pair of other American Cruise Line ships in 2021 and 2022. And the FDA issued a warning that accused the line of failing to provide proof of procedure changes after multiple guests had confirmed cases of Legionnaire's disease. Also in the mainstream news headlines this week, a Viking River Cruises captain has been sentenced to 5.5 years in a Hungarian prison for negligence. The incident occurred in Budapest on the Danube River in May of 2019. Master, that's what they call the captains on the river ships, Master Yuri Chaplinski was skippering the Viking sign when it struck a local sightseeing boat, the Hableni, which translates to the mermaid. The Viking longship was overtaking the sightseeing boat at night during a rainstorm. They were underneath the Margaret Bridge in central Budapest when the Viking ship ran over the smaller vessel. The sightseeing boat had 35 people aboard, and it sank reportedly within seconds. And 26 South Korean tourists and the ship's 2 crew were killed. There were no reports of injuries on board the Viking longship, though. The Viking captain was convicted of gross negligence, or in the words of the Budapest judge, endangering water transport leading to a deadly mass accident. Although he was acquitted on the additional charge of failing to provide help. The captain, who's now 68 years old, has been under house arrest since 2020, and the sentencing judge gave him time served, meaning that Captain Chaplinski will actually spend less than 2 years in jail, though the court's decision is being appealed, actually both by the captain's defense team and by the prosecutors, who believe the sentencing is too light. So for now, the captain is actually back under house arrest pending a new trial. If there's one positive thing to say about this horrible tragedy, it's that accidents like these are rather rare. BBC News reports that this was the worst disaster on the Danube in the past 30 years, and the Danube is Europe's second largest river. Now, the deals desk. One of these days we might actually, get a separate desk for this segment, but for now, we're just calling it the deals desk. So we haven't seen many standout sales or special offers this week, though I think there'll be some coming up in the next few weeks, but as we move into fall and we've got Black Friday coming up in a little over a month. But nevertheless, there have been a lot of new itinerary announcements, so we'll get to those in just a moment. First, there is one sale worth mentioning. Paul Gauguin Cruises is running a 25th anniversary fall sale that offers up to 40% savings on voyages through 2025, plus an additional $600 welcome gift, they're calling it, per stateroom. So if you're looking for an all-inclusive small ship cruising experience of French Polynesia, you might want to check that one out. So now on to new itineraries. Oceania Cruises has announced a collection of what they're calling immersive itineraries for summer of 2025. These are 100 new voyages, 50 of them grand voyages, that are shared amongst their fleet of 8 ships, which in 2025 will include the new Vista and Allura ships. Spread amongst these new itineraries are 10 of what Oceania is calling new boutique ports. So those are off the beaten path destinations that few cruise lines visit. These include small ports in Turkey, Croatia, Greece, Italy, Scotland, Greenland, and multiple stops in Sweden and Finland. Among the other highlights are the Riviera sailing in Alaska for the very first time. Also together, the Marina and Serena will be making 9 voyages to Iceland and Greenland, including 2 sailings departing from New York and 2 sailings departing from Montreal. So Diana and I have got our eyes on the 19-day subarctic scenes voyage that goes from New York City to Reykjavik in August of 2025. So those 2025 itineraries are now open for reservations as of October 4th. The relaunched Crystal has also announced its 2025 itineraries on board the Crystal Serenity and Crystal Symphony. These voyages include a 123-night world cruise aboard the Serenity that begins in Florida in January of 2025 and ends in Spain in May of 2025. A couple itineraries that really catch our eye include 10 nights from Saudi Arabia to Athens that transits the Suez Canal, and a 14-night Indian Ocean cruise from Mombasa, Kenya to Mumbai in India that spends 3 nights in the Seychelles. So we're going to be looking into that. And if it's not enough for you to plan ahead into 2025, Azamara has announced its 2026 World Cruise. The 155-night, what they're calling a Grand Expedition, is on the R-class ship, the Azamara Onward, and it visits 35 countries with stops at all 7 wonders of the world. Prices start at $39,000 a person for an interior stateroom and go all the way up to $150,000 per person for the Club World Owner's Suite. So thanks for watching Calling All Ports, and we hope you're enjoying our new weekly format. As always, please give this video a like and click that subscribe button to keep getting these weekly premium luxury and ultra luxury news reports. Until next week, be seeing you.